just a good old boy, never meaning no harm. Beats all you never saw, been in trouble with the law since the day they was born. Straightening the curves, flattening the hills. Someday the mountain might get 'em, but the law never will. Making their way the only way they know how. That's just a little bit more than the law will allow. Just a good old boy, they wouldn't change if they could. Fighting the system like a true modern day Robin Hood.
Advise them, Trent! Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I will
Hey!
blow your brains out.
Hey! All right, Taylor.
I will.
Hey! Get him cut behind the back. Let's go. We got him. Stay right here. I got him. Last house on that. All right, just don't move. I got him covered. Rob. There you go. Everybody's on you if we got it. Oh man, you got to go. We can't. We'll make sure he's covered.
We're here today to talk about speed traps. There was a recent posting on Facebook through the Macon Telegraph about a town in Florida that was operating radar illegally and speed trap type issues, and immediately a lot of the comments at the bottom, a lot of the people from the public started making accusations about agencies in Middle Georgia that were, they considered to be speed traps, and Centerville's name popped up several times, and quite honestly it was frustrating because I've been here for 14 years and I personally know that we are operating within the boundaries of the law as far as radar goes.
Yeah, I did hear about it, and it doesn't surprise me one bit. To me, I took it as a compliment. We're actually doing our job if we're getting that type of response. People should know to slow down and not to speed because we don't want those type of dangers on our roadway.
Basically, the speeding fines that we take in each year in our city municipal court, those revenue that comes in from speeding fines, just speeding fines specifically, cannot exceed 40% of the police department's annual budget. Our yearly operating budget is on an average of the last few years of $1.6 million. In 2012, we had only 5.64% of our speeding fine revenue for that year. That was only 5.64% of our annual budget. In 2013, the fine revenue that we took in was only 9.4% of our annual budget of $1.6 million. And so far this year, our speeding fine revenue is only at 4.81% of our annual budget, which is well below the 40% required by law.
We're given requirements set forth by the state to make sure we don't go over, and as you can see with the numbers that we've given you, we're well under the limits. Could those numbers be higher at 40%, which is requirement that we stay under by the state? Yes, they sure could be, but those numbers show that we don't just focus on generating revenue through speeding tickets. We focus on
We most certainly have the documentation to prove that we're operating within them boundaries. You have to have approval from your governing authority to operate radar, which we do. You have to have a license from the FCC, which we do. The officer has to do a radar accuracy test at the beginning of the shift, at the end of his shift, and any time the violator requests an accuracy test during his shift. The officer has to do a logbook every day indicating when he does those accuracy tests. The officer has to be, under Georgia law, has to be visible by 500 feet when they're operating radar. There are certain footage parameters involved with speed reduction at zones, entering into the city limits and stuff of that nature. An officer cannot operate radar on a hill that has a 7% grade. We do not have any hills in Centerville that have a 7% grade.
State law requires us to give the motoring public a 10-mile-an-hour cushion. We take that a step further and we give them a 15-mile-an-hour cushion before we start writing tickets. I think that's very generous on our part. At any point in time during the day when someone's driving, they could be going 10, 11, 12 over the speed limit. We understand that. That's why we don't start ticketing until 15 over the posted speed limit.
We have been the subject of at least one open radar investigation complaint, which was back in 2001, that involved myself when I was a patrol officer. That was very frustrating and stressful to me at the time, as it would be to anybody that gets a complaint filed against them and they're under investigation by the state. However, at the end of that investigation, Georgia Department of Public Safety cleared me. We personally strive to make sure that we operate under the boundaries of Georgia law, because us as law enforcement officers are held to a higher standard. And it does get frustrating when you're accused of being a speed trap when you know in fact that you're not.
Just caught one the other day running 35 miles an hour over the speed limit. I'm sorry, but that's just dangerous. It's dangerous to the person in the car and to every other soul on the roadway. I don't want any of the citizens in Byron to be subjected to someone running 18, 20, 30 miles an hour over the speed limit. If there's an accident, the chances of injury or death increase so much more.
Specifically run radar in areas such as school zones, residential areas, and high traffic accident areas. These areas that we run radar in, our main goal and concern is public safety, period. We don't enforce traffic laws for revenue. We enforce traffic laws for public safety.
Well, I mean, my response to that is simply that our guys work. I ask each officer to do their job, and that involves many different things, from answering their calls for service, also patrolling our neighborhoods, and a big part of law enforcement's job is traffic safety. And we do focus on each and every aspect of that job. I wish somebody would go back and pull the traffic crash stats from each agency. Not that we're trying to see which agency has the lower stats, but I'm a firm believer that every speeder that is stopped, given a citation or a warning, or however the officer sees fit to handle that case, that is one potential traffic crash that is prevented. So I don't see it as a bad thing. I see it as hopefully making our town and the highways and the streets within our city a lot safer.
A lot of people know that we do work a lot of traffic enforcement here, and I just think it's a perception and not being educated on what it really is.
Some people just won't ever understand. They get a speeding ticket in Byron or anywhere in Middle Georgia, and we're going to be tagged a speed trap when all they had to do is not speed.
I give most everyone 15 miles an hour over, and I don't just pick a car out because it's a particular type of car or anything like that. It just depends on who's violating the speed limit in that given area, whatever the posted speed limit is.
I see you're flipping the button back and forth.
That's the front and rear antenna.
I see.
and I'm just changing the radar antenna. I'm just changing which one the signal's coming from.
So that red was the coming toward us, green is behind us?
Green says rear right there at the bottom.
I see it now.
Put this out to let the motorists know what the speed limit is on this road, which is 35. The digital display up here is the motorist, the vehicle speed that's passing. If the motorist exceeds the speed limit past 35 miles per hour, the sign will start flashing. If they go more than 10 miles over the speed limit, which will be 11 miles per hour or over, there's red and blue lights in here that flash to let them know, hey, if there was a police officer out here, you'd be pulled over. We do not issue citations from this speed sign. There's no way of doing that. It's just simply a way to let the public know this is the speed limit on this road. You need to watch your speed.
Well, while we're at the meeting tonight, someone asked you, what exactly is your job?
Mr. Belladino of Eagle Springs Homeowner Association president asked me what my job description was. And as I've explained on multiple media sites, it is the administrative and supervision of the police department. I am not a mandated officer. I will not be a mandated officer until I retire from education and go to the academy, where I will become mandated and attend chief school, and then I will become a mandated law enforcement officer. Lieutenant Pritchett is the chief law enforcement officer for the city of Centerville.
Okay, and explain kind of what you will be doing in your role.
Administrating and supervising the patrol officers and the administration of the city of Centerville Police Department.
All right. Well, can you be more specific?
No, ma'am, I cannot.
Okay.
Ask a principal how he runs a school. Ask a superintendent of schools how he runs the county.
Okay.
Now, if you can get a specific answer to those, I'll come back with a specific answer for the police department.
Okay.
Just a good old boy, never meaning no harm. Beats all you never saw, been in trouble with the law since the day they was born. Straightening the curves, flattening the hills. Someday the mountain might get 'em, but the law never will. Making their way the only way they know how. That's just a little bit more.
Scared, just like I was scared the night that I was stopped.
Betty Golden, almost 70 years old, a grandmother, is on her way to jail. Her nightmare began on this lonely road in Centerville, Georgia, as she was driving home late at night from the supermarket. She saw blue lights flashing behind her and heard a siren. She says she wasn't sure it was the real police. You see, Betty had seen stories about phony cops pulling people over, robbing, raping, even killing them. She recalled the advice from those stories: slow down, put on your emergency flashers, and look for a populated, well-lit area to pull over. And she says that's what this police dashboard camera shows she did.
They had to know I was not fleeing. You don't flee at 10 miles on the speed limit, your emergency flashers on.
But when another marked police car pulled next to her, she pulled over. But now she was in for the shock of her life.
Get out of your car! Unlock the door! Open the door now!
With a gun pointed just inches from her head, Betty says she was so frightened and nervous that she had trouble opening the door.
Do not make me break the window and pull you out of that car.
He could tell that I wasn't any danger to him.
Betty decided to fight the charges and went to trial. And believe it or not, she was convicted of fleeing and interference with a police officer because she didn't open the car door fast enough. But incredibly, she was found not guilty of the original charge of failure to maintain a lane.
Have you ever been arrested before?
No.
Ever got a ticket even?
No. No tickets. No citations.
Betty's mugshot and fingerprints were taken, and she was sentenced to 10 days in jail and 1 year probation.
I will have a police record to leave with my grandchildren. And maybe nobody else would really understand that except a grandmother.
For 2 years, Betty and her husband Byron have been fighting the charges and have spent more than $20,000 on legal expenses. But in April, all of her appeals were exhausted, and Betty was ordered to report to jail for 10 nights. She was allowed to go home during the day. We were with her as she left her home for the 7-mile drive to the jail, right past the spot where she'd been arrested.
Hopefully the beginning of the end, huh?
Betty entered the sheriff's office to start her sentence.
I wonder so often, how did it get so out of control?